Old-time ways.
Let's get after it.
If you're interested in nukes, packages, queens, or supplies, visit us on the web at naturesimagefarm.com.
Welcome
Back to the Nature's Image Farm podcast and the live chat stream. And if you're checking back later on a replay, thanks for tuning in. It's good to see everybody in here tonight. A lot of folks joining us tonight. David Lewis. We have Grammy's midwife at Suburban Homestead, Lisa. Our buddy Keith Spillman. Spider. Chris from Drop Tine Farms. Our pals Steve and Jane from S&J Honey. Randy from Trails End Farm. Randy Southard from Tar Hill Beekeeper. Mrs. Michelle Spillman. We have Grayson from Wildwood Honeybee Farm. Gio Vincent. Dan Weaver, J.W. Irwin. Good to see you, J.W. I think it's the same J.W. I talked to last week. So if so, it's good talking to you, J.W. Mr. John Lawler from Shekinah Honeyworks is in the house. 2B Brats Honey from Northeast Pennsylvania. Square Bee Honey Farms. Terry 47, M&J Habitat, Cody Walker. Great having you guys all along tonight. And our buddy Ian Stepler. Yo, yo, yo. Ian, good to have you in the house too. We literally just came in from the farm. We've been talking how do we keep maintaining these Sunday night chats when the season really kicks in. As you can see here, I'm wind burnt and covered in farmness, so it's going to be interesting to say the least. Getting in here on time each night. I think we're going to have to make sure to move the studio over to the actual farm so we don't have any excuses for being late. But hey, what a heck of a weekend. Hope you guys have been enjoying the weather. And
it's March.
It's March.
Welcome to March.
And should I just say it? I don't know if I should say it. I feel like what I'm getting ready to say.
I can't even imagine what you're about to say.
I feel like what I want to say is like you're going to have just so many like knee jerk like, what are you talking about, you dummy? No, it's not. I'm just going to say it. Because we are not ones to pay attention to what everyone on social media says. We're not ones to look at the Aztec calendar, the American calendar, the whatever calendar. We look to nature. And what nature is telling us is, are you ready? Spring is here. Yeah, it's here. Whether you're ready or not, spring is here. And you're thinking, are you serious? What are you talking about? Well, we're going to get in that tonight. Spring has sprung 3 weeks early. What does that mean for the bees? What does that mean for the farm? And man alive.
What does it mean for us?
What does it mean for us? Susie, what are some of the things that we are why are we saying spring is here? What are some of the things that you're seeing?
So my first indicators are things like I'm pulling up my driveway, which is gravel, as thick as I can imagine. And there are dandelions popping up through the gravel. So, and also I saw yellow daffodils bloomed, like full bloom, not just a little tiny bit. Oh, I see some, the stalks of daffodils. These are bloomed daffodils.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not only that, we have 40 minutes west. They started a week ago. This week, the forsythia is blooming in Hopewell, Ohio.
It is. That was bloom this week. I forgot all the yellows. Yellows.
We talk about this, but this is why this is really important. This is why I want to bring this up. If there is nothing else that you take away from tonight's talk, is that when you are in tune with nature, she shows you the signs.
Yeah.
And yellow is one of those signs that is a massive indicator for us on get ready, the season's starting, and get ready, the season is closing. As we start off in the beginning of the year, we see a little bit of dandelion. We'll see the daffodils. We see forsythia. Those are all yellow.
Crocuses.
When we get into the end of the season, the big, bright, on fire yellow everywhere is goldenrod. And that tells us buckle up, get everything buttoned down. It's time to get everything winded down and ready for wintertime.
That's true.
So yellow is one of those, for us, beautiful colors that nature gives us as a sign to just be ready. So not only are you seeing all those flowers, when you go out into the woods, right, which are even cooler and in the shade, I'm finding purple dead nettle is blooming. We're finding the multiflora rose and things like Russian olive are already pushing out leaves. All the brambles are just full of they're ready to tear into you, and you can feel it. When you walk through the woods and you get ate up by brambles and thorns, it feels a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But when spring comes and they start to have sap flow through it, it's like those barbs sharpen up, they get tighter, and it hurts more. It just has a different feel, as silly as that sounds. So those are just a couple things that we're seeing on top of maples that are in full bloom and have been for 10 days. The bees are going to town on them. And one of my favorite things that I always look for, and when I hear this thing, I know we're there. Spring peepers. I know I know you know what we're talking about. But when you get out there, we're up in the hills. It's up and down, up and down, up and down. A lot of creek bottoms, ravines, ponds, bodies of water. And right now, all you can hear is just the spring peepers just doing their thing, the frogs. So whether your calendar is ready, whether your local Facebook group is ready, it doesn't matter, because nature's moving towards spring in a big way and faster than I think we have ever seen. So we can either sit here on our laurels and we can just ho-hum and just wait for, somebody on social media or someone else to tell us it's time to start our beekeeping season, or we can look to nature, and nature is telling us, buckle up, spring is coming. And that's a big deal to be in tune. Now it's time. Well, now what do we do?
I don't know. What do you do once you hear the spring peepers, you've seen the daffodils and the dandelion, first dandelion pops up, and, grandma's forsythia blooms. What do you do now?
Well, one of the things that we've been saying for a couple weeks now, and we've gotten a lot of resistance, and we've gotten a pretty tremendous amount of weeping and gnashing of teeth, is weeks ago we recommended that folks put pollen sub out, put some dry pollen sub out to see what the bees do, because we saw the bees bringing in pollen from somewhere. When we saw the bees doing that just ahead of the maple blooms, we started putting dry pollen sub out to see what they would do. And guess what they did? They destroyed it. They took it all down. It disappeared. So then we progressed from the dry pollen sub up to the next level, and we started putting our Hive Alive pollen patties on. And guess what the bees are doing? They're eating it up. Now we're in a part of the season where there is pollen starting to show up everywhere. And when it's on warm days, the bees are bringing in the pollen. So to me, that's what we're going to continue to do. We're continuing to put small amounts of pollen patties out to help our bees continue to slowly brood up and have that protein. So when it is like full on pollen and nectar at the same time, and the daylight hours and the warmth, now they'll really start to brood up.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of misunderstandings, and maybe this is my misunderstanding, but I'm going to tell you what I see the bees telling me, and what I see in my colonies, especially the brood nest this time of year, is just feeding them pollen patties alone does not make our bees brood up. They don't do it. Now, if let's say we take the pollen patties out of the equation and we just feed them Pro Sweet this time of year, which we do, just doing that doesn't cause them to brood up. If we take away the Pro Sweet and we take away the pollen patties and we have warm days where it's 70, that in and of itself doesn't cause them to have an explosion in brood. But when you have all three of those things, when you have the carbohydrates from the feed, when you have the protein from the pollen, and you have those days of warmth, continuous days of warmth, and those temperatures that are up that warm, that's the formula for the bees to start making more brood. Now, they didn't just all of a sudden start making brood. They've slowly been making brood since the equinox, very, very slowly. But it's important to understand, I think, how and why the bees brood up, and to just spend more time listening to the bees than listening to what everyone else tells you on how you should be raising your bees. And that's as far as I'm going to go on that soapbox tonight.
Well, just understanding that not every book has a specific time and date. If a book says something like March 21st or something, it's probably not necessarily.
Hey,
you got to use your eyes.
You got to use your eyes and your ears.
Yeah.
Ears,
Oh, yeah. You got some of those.
Jiminy Christmas.
Got to use your hearers.
Got to use your hearers. But anyways, so yeah, so that's what we're doing. Nature is showing us that spring is here, and what we are doing is now we are starting to build up those things that I can't control how much the sun warms up our bee yards. What I can control is the carbohydrates and protein.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that we're doing right now is putting our Hive Alive protein patties on there.
Yeah.
Especially it's got thymol, it's got some other goodies inside of there, help keep their gut clean, start to build them up,
Right.
keep them clean. And then we're going to be with our bucket feeders and using our feeder plugs, we're going to be putting Pro Sweet on everything just to give them the carbs that they need. And that's our formula for really getting these bees to just grow at the rate that they can. And it makes a huge difference. If we wait until it is abundantly clear that spring is here, like if we wait until Easter to start doing any of this, we have just lost an entire month of getting these bees built up. What does that mean? That could be 3 or 4 frames of brood. That could be a half a box of bees. Those things make a huge difference when you're in the business of not only the business of raising bees, but when it is your prerogative to raise more bees because you're going to be raising honey or anything else that you want to. So I want you just to keep that in mind, that this is the time of year not to sit on your laurels and wait around until the newsman tells you spring's here. Look to nature. She can't make it any more obvious than it's coming. Doesn't mean that we're not going to get snow or ice or cold. Old timers have always said for a long time, 3 snows after the forsythia blooms.
Yeah.
We saw that for quite a few years, but I would say, Susie, the last couple of years, how many snows have we gotten after the forsythia?
I mean, literally, it could be a snowflake. It drops for 5 minutes and then it's gone and it's warm again and warm enough not to snow at least. I mean, so if you're counting, so I think last year it was maybe 1, possibly if we stretched it 2. But I mean, it's been years since we've seen like solid coating snow after the forsythia. So it's been a while.
It's been a while. We usually get maybe.
Now we just keep getting these wind and rain storms.
That's an interesting.
All this year.
We'll talk about. We'll get in that tonight too. But it seems as though we, with reverence and respect to the old timers and a lot of these things that we use to guide us through the season. When you say 3, always try to. Well, was that a snow, or it might be a little bit of flurry, or I thought I saw a snowflake. I'm going to count that.
There.
We rarely now are getting 1 real snow, maybe 2 at the very most after the forsythia blooms. And the snow is not going to, a couple snows is not going to turn the bees on their ear if they've started to brood up. And we'll talk more about, I think, a lot of the biology and things inside of the colony and how in the world are they able to keep a colony at 90 or 95 inside the colony when it's 10 degrees outside. It's extremely fascinating that they can kind of do all those things tonight. So we're going to get into a couple other topics tonight. We're definitely going to take some questions, a bee Q&A or homestead in general Q&A. I'm going to try to, you probably can't see it from your end. On our end, I can star questions. So as the questions come in, when we get to that kind of topic or genre of questions, we'll get to it. But I'm going to go ahead and star them so I see them. I got a great question from Todd Prater regarding DCAs. Todd, I've got that star. We're going to talk about that here a little bit later too. But we've been busy, especially this weekend, getting the new building, the learning yard and shop, getting metal up and doors in and all these kind of things. So it's been really exciting to see something that was just a 3-sided pole barn turn into the future education and sales opportunities here at the farm. And that's what we've been probably the most busy doing, is trying to get that ready for our first learning yard. We haven't officially released the dates yet. We have to look at the calendar still a little bit further. But as of right now, it looks like we're going to start the first learning yard is going to be April 1st, that Saturday, just ahead of our first package pickup weekend, which would be April the 8th. So if you are a customer of ours, if you've bought bees, or if you're a military veteran and you want to come out and learn hands-on for free, the Learning Yard is a great place for us all learn together, hands-on beekeeping, 100% free for all military veterans, and it's free for our bee customers, just a way that we can support those that have supported us in one way or the other. So be on the lookout. You'll be getting emails if you did buy nukes or packages this year. You'll be getting emails here over the next few weeks with all the details about the Learning Yard. But it's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be so many fun things to build on from last year, and then new things that we're doing, including some really fantastic guests that are going to be stopping by the Learning Yard this year. And I'll leave that as a surprise for a little bit later. But Susie kind of had a big surprise for your birthday last week. And you got a brand new Harvest Right freeze dryer.
Yeah.
And you have been busy freeze drying everything.
I'm
everything.
Trying. I don't know. I'm trying my best, but we'll see. Me and Mom ordered a couple new pieces for it so that I can keep it going a little bit more often than I have been, because I only had the 4 set of trays that it came with. So we ordered a couple little extra items this week so that we can try to get some pre-freezing done on some items. So that's helpful. And I don't know if you can pull up any pictures or not, but I did send you a couple pictures of some fun stuff we did. So first things first.
You fill everybody in on the freeze dryer stuff, and I'll see if I can't work. Oh, see,
don't lose your mic.
My mic. I'll see if I can't pull up some pictures here on the computer.
Okay. So, first things first, you've got to put the most important thing in for the first freeze dry session, and that was for the kids candy. So we freeze dried, I'm not going to say circus peanuts was a letdown, but I certainly think that freeze dried circus peanuts was just not the way to go.
I thought they were awesome. They were actually one of my favorites.
They weren't my favorite.
They weren't keto,
the Jolly Ranchers were amazing. Those were fun. So we went with something that had enough in the bag, because with our family, literally 4 trays of something is gone. I mean, it takes longer to think about buying it, freeze drying it, and getting it out than it does for them to eat it. So that was the first round. It was weird. I maybe I shouldn't have done it that way, but I did do the candy first, but that was just a fun, kind of tester to see what it would do. And if it was running properly, it wouldn't ruin any healthy food. So I did those first, and then I'm trying to think of what I did next. I think the next thing we did was bananas? I think I did a few apples, some grapes. We had some leftover broccoli cheddar soup, so I did that. And
that's kind of crazy. I'm kind of ignorant to a lot of things, but what you can get by with putting in that freeze dryer. When you said you were putting in broccoli cheddar soup, I said, "What?"
Yeah, I know. You were
think about how amazing that is.
Yeah, so that I think that I'm just trying to remember what all it was, but I think I did the broccoli cheddar soup and fruit. So I wasn't sure with a freeze dryer if you can kind of intermix savory and sweet. So I was a little concerned if it would spread kind of, so
there's a couple I think you did a lot of things. You did bananas, you did apples, you did the circus peanuts, Jolly Ranchers,
bananas, apples.
You did the ice cream, ice cream sandwiches. You did,
those were gone. Yeah, grapes. We did a fun
lemons.
one. Yeah, we did lemons, which were so sour. I could not believe how sour those were. Those were definitely.
You can see in the photo here, the freeze dryer in the background, and you've got I think we got grapes.
That was just frozen. No, those weren't grapes. Those were
like
actually a freezer mix of strawberries, tart cherries, sweet cherries, and blueberries. It's like a smoothie mix that you can buy. And then we had some leftover lemons. So I sliced one lemon just to see what it would do. And bananas are one of the kids' favorites. And grapes actually sliced in half kind of taste like candy.
It's a lot of it's kind of too good. You almost feel bad because you can just absolutely chow down and just destroy an entire day's work in the freeze dryer.
Yeah.
And like no time.
I can't keep up with you guys. I feel like no matter what I do, I can't keep up with. They'll consume it quicker than I can freeze dry it. So I don't know how I'm going to get ahead of them ever. Maybe I won't. That's okay. But I did do beef stew.
Beef stew is a fun one.
That'd be fun.
We've got a couple shout outs. Our buddy Scott Boring stopped over, and I don't know. Check. Okay, let's see. Can anyone guess what's in this Mylar bag without just crazy guesses?
So we'll see how it's thin.
Okay, it's thin. Okay.
Yep. And I don't know. Maybe people have really good
This is a freeze dried product. Let's see if anyone can guess what is in this Mylar bag, and this might be the most impressive, coolest thing that I think you could probably freeze dry. One of the, I mean, it's got to be, would be in my
for us at least.
And you know, there's so many things about this freeze dryer that I'm just now
you didn't know
appreciating how awesome that it is. But anyone who has a large family, anyone who is even remotely interested or finds value in prepping or survival, this is one of the most amazing things that I think you can put on there. So our friends Scott and Melinda Boring, thank you for this generosity. But this is freeze dried milk. Now think about that. Milk, an entire quart of milk. Now, no matter what happens, if it ever hits the fan, if times get tough, you can always go out to the ditch, get water, run it through a Berkey filter,
and have
milk. Like that is such an amazing.
And for our family, that's great because we go through 5 to 6 gallons a week of milk. Like, of course, when we had dairy cows, nobody ever wanted milk, but then now there's no cows to milk.
Yeah, it's like when we had 2 cows to milk, no one drank it, and
Yeah.
then now when we don't have the cows, you can't keep enough milk in the house.
I know.
What's up with that?
I don't know. It's crazy how much they can drink, and I think it's because, of course, it's even though it's whole milk, it's still less fattening than.
There was nothing better than raw Jersey milk, but I gotta say, I do not miss moving those cows every day or every week and moving the water and moving the poly wire and moving them from paddock to paddock to paddock. I definitely don't miss that.
Yeah.
But I do, as silly as it sounds, I miss the smell of having cows around.
Yeah.
I do miss just feeling like you're moving your ecosystem in a positive direction at all times by having cows on pasture. You know, even when you're not there watching them, they're eating, they're dropping manure, they're increasing the fertility, they're a part of that beautiful system. I do miss that, but it's been such a blessing to put all of our time and energy and resources to just the bees.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been a big
and
deal.
I enjoy doing that too. I just think, you know, it's kind of one of those things. Maybe when I don't have as many little kids,
maybe when
I'm not homeschooling and doing all the other full-time work.
Yeah. Right now we're in such a massive, it feels like growth cycle on bees, the learning yard, our supply shop, not to mention the 18 million projects that I have done everywhere else, including the homestead. Like, it's really, I mean, there's too many loose ends. There's too many things that need to get done.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that I definitely gotta, work on. But maybe when we get the honeydew and all the things finally, all those lists complete, maybe we'll we'll look into it, but maybe not. While we're at it, I never got a chance to thank them. But I got we got some cool stuff from our buddy Randy, the Dirt Rooster.
Take a drink of coffee while you do that.
That cool hat.
Oh.
So Randy and
That's
Elizabeth,
pretty cool, man.
Thanks for sending that. And then check out this shirt.
Don't hit your microphone. Nice. That's pretty cool, man.
Yep. So Randy said
that's not my size, so you got it for yourself.
Well, no, I don't have. We've got some other things that maybe we'll talk about later. But they were real kind, and they sent the twins some hoodies that they absolutely love, and then we got Elizabeth has her own line of female T-shirts. So it's the colors and the cuts that are more, I think, flattering for ladies than wearing men's T-shirts. And
I don't know. After 7 kids, a man's T-shirt fits me just fine.
Well, it's the colors and the shapes and the cuts they're pretty cool. So I think you can find more on that at Randy's website.
If you have a girlish figure, I'm sure it'll be great.
Yep. So Randy and Elizabeth, thanks a lot for sending those. There's kind of a cool little thing going on, and let me see if I can pull up the picture. This Saturday we broke loose from the farm just a little early because we had just a hare to go pick out the family's new German short-haired pointer.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So awesome. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but puppies are just fun.
So we got our puppy is not quite old enough to bring back, but yet. We were the first one to reach out to them the day that Mama was whelping. They posted, and it came across my Facebook feed, and I saw, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I got to reach out to these."
That was the craziest thing. I know.
I don't believe in coincidence, but that was pretty cool. And so we reached out, and we got to we were the very, very first ones. But are you guys ready? Like, okay, I got to be careful showing these kind of pictures. If you guys, I've got some really cute German short-haired puppy pics. If you guys want to see them, just make comment puppy in the comments. Otherwise, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, because once you see puppy pics, then you kind of got to have one.
Yeah, exactly.
And there is a few litter mates that are still available. So if you are interested in a litter mate to our gun dog, check out More Crest GSP on Facebook. Great family. They have some really good looking pups. Okay, there's lots of people want to see the puppies, so let's find it. Let's see here. We've got quite a few. We'll start with this one. Look at that. Is that not adorable? A German short-haired pointer. It's a male. He was going by the number 9. We'll kind of reveal his name a little bit later, but let's talk about that a little bit tonight. Whether you're on a farm or a homestead, or maybe in a subdivision or anywhere else, you might be looking for a puppy, and if you happen to be looking for a field dog or a gun dog, I think there's a couple things that you look for that ordinarily you might not think about. A lot of folks, when for dogs, they might just be looking for color, and is it male, is it female, and they're looking at price and AKC and all these kind of things, right? But look at this. Look how cute.
That's classic German short hair.
Isn't he cute? Oh yeah. Man, he is. He's such a good looking dog. One thing that we did is when they brought all the puppies out, and we were already looking at a male. We have an Australian Shepherd, Maybelle, and she's a female, and she is the best dog we've ever had. She's phenomenal around the kids. She was great around the cows. She'll jump in the truck, go to the farm, run around, stay with you. She does this really fun thing where she goes in and she checks in on all the kids.
Yes.
Goes into each bedroom constantly, makes her rounds. She herds.
Especially at night.
She's checking, making sure everyone is going around. She keeps an ear out at nighttime. If there's a raccoon that gets on the porch, that's pestering the cats or getting into cat food, she'll come wake me up, and we'll go out there and take care of that.
Well, she helped save my rooster last week. So
that's what, okay, and we'll have to get to that too. Remind us about the rooster and coon story, because we started to talk about it and got sidetracked last night.
Yeah.
But so we went and visited Saturday, actually yesterday.
Yeah.
Wow, it's been a
long weekend.
It's been a long day already. Yesterday we went out to Moorcrest Farms to look at the pups and pick. You know, a lot of folks will do it differently. They'll pick just the color or this or that, but we like to go out there and really do feel like you don't pick the dog picks you.
Yes.
And you kind of have to, knowing that it's a bird dog and a gun dog, it's going to spend time in the field, it's going to spend time on the couch or at the foot of the bed or in the truck. You're looking for a few different things for the dog. But look, you can see in this photo here, look at his shape. He's got just, not only is the colors beautiful, but that tail, having that white tick tail, just waggling around is just absolutely adorable.
They look like old grandpas even when they're
Let
pups.
me show you this one. Is that one good? Look at that dude there. Is he not adorable or what?
He is adorable.
He's
that was
so
before
cute.
his haircut.
Yeah.
I was talking about you.
Oh, I'm thinking haircut. What are you talking about? Yeah, look. Yeah, you gave me. I've got my ears lowered, guys. You probably can't see that, but he's just so. Oh, look how cute he is.
So, and they're so silky. If you've never held a German Shorthair puppy, they are the silkiest puppies. Because the kids keep saying our kids have never had a our younger kids have never had a German Shorthair puppy, and they're like, is it fuzzy? Is it fuzzy? I said, no, they're silky. They're silky. So they're very, very excited to meet him and get to know him. And he's very loving and very curious, but stays very close, even though he didn't know us from.
Yeah. One of the things that we look for is we did it with several of the dogs, but we kind of have this is at least our routine. We want the dog to kind of pick us. And of course, we were in this particular phase of our life, we were looking for a male because we do want to get a pup off of our female, which is an Australian Shepherd. But I don't want necessarily a bunch more Australian Shepherds to do all the things that we want to do. They're great and fantastic dogs, but like we talked about, if you go back to that video, Pure Hive and the Honor Hunt, when I was out in South Dakota with Jeff Johnson and the guys there at Premier Bee Products, we went on that pheasant hunt, and they had short hairs and labs. And anyways, getting out there in the field and hunting pheasants and to be able to do it with German short hairs, to our family, not only in honor of Susie's late grandpa Fred, but it's just it's an important pastime, and it's an important thing to be able to pass down to the kids and to keep that heritage alive and well. And so short hairs were just that's what we wanted. We had a short hair in the past. You grew up with short hairs.
Yeah.
So knowing that the dog is going to be working birds and working the couch, we wanted a pup that, number one, was interactive with us. Yeah. When we would walk backwards and walk around, he would want to follow us a little bit, was curious about us. But we also wanted a dog that just wouldn't be so attached to us that it wouldn't go out and explore in a little bit. Some of the dogs, when they came out of the kennel, they just were off. They were just off doing and exploring and could care less about us. And then there were some that saw us and wanted to come check us out. And then when we got to kind of meet and have that little bonding moment, then they wanted to keep coming back and stay with you. And then they would go explore and then come back. And then Susie and I would kind of change it up and pick them up, look at them. So having a gun dog, a bird dog that does want to explore and go see, and it is curious, is a good sign too, because when they get out in the field, they're not going to just be right under your feet the entire time. They're going to be out. I think Jacob made a good point. Jacob Moore with Moorcrest Farms, is it's way easier to bring a dog in if they're out too far than get a dog to go out and hunt. If the dog is always under your feet and is always 4 and 5 feet away from you constantly, that can be a problem. But there's ways you can bring the dog in. If the dog is a little too rangy, you can still bring them back in. So finding that balance for us was a big deal. And we had it narrowed down to 3 males. But what was so interesting is we had we had one of the, as soon as all the pups came out, all 9 of them came out, there was one little female, and she came and sat right on my boot, and she wouldn't leave. And she was just as cute as could be. And I wanted to really just take her home too. But we have a plan, and we wanted a male. So it was down to 3 males, and they all kind of have their own little thing to them.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do is, so we check for, we want them to range a little bit, but want them to come back. And when we call and whistle, or they come back, and it kept doing that. And then we're looking at their face, clean, clear eyes, face structure. This number 9 was just well chiseled, just a beautiful face. But when he's out working and he's exploring, like we're looking at their back line, the conformation of the dog. What are the shoulders and the rear hips like? What's the back line and the neck and that head line? What are all those things kind of look like? And this little pup was just running around there doing his thing, and he had that back was just a nice back line. His head was popped up. It just had a nice stance. His shoulders were really symmetrical. He wasn't too overly like bulldog wide, but he wasn't too skinny. He was somewhere right in between, where as he gets bigger, he can plow through those weeds, but he's not too wide where he's going to get hung up and everything. He can still maneuver and kind of be nimble
over himself.
And just overall looking at how long the legs are versus how barreled the chest is. He was just like, it seemed perfect, balanced all the way through. And that was a big deal. And then the other thing that we looked for is when we picked them up, some pups just don't want to be submissive. They're already headstrong. And when you roll them over, especially males, and when you roll them over on their back and you take your hand, now you're not trying to choke the dog, but you're putting your hand just over their throat, and you can immediately, most of the time you can see, is this dog is he going to submit to my authority? Will he submit to us being alpha? That's a big deal. And number 9, he was playful and loving and just was enjoying being, a pet, and we were warm. And when I flip him over and just put my hand on his throat, he was just like, hey, cool. How's it going? Is everything okay? Like he wasn't fighting or flopping or resisting. Some of the other ones were a little bit more, they were wiggly, squiggly. They wanted to get out. They didn't like it, having it. One, grumbled a little bit, but this one was like, okay, cool. I submit. You're the alpha. Everything's cool. And you flip them back over and you pet them down. It was just, you just sometimes know. And that one felt right. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, they're all amazing. Every single one of them would be beautiful family dogs and gun dogs. But number 9 kept sticking out. And then so I asked you, and then you were coming up with the same thing too. Was there anything that you were looking at or you saw at number 9?
I just think that you go back to your first experience, and my first experience with the German Shorthair was very similarly shaped and sized and colored to number 9. And so, my first German Shorthair looked very similar, brown head, ticking and, patchwork on the back. And, she had actually a number 8 kind of shape on her back when I was picking her, but just, I don't know, his whole demeanor with us was different than the rest of the puppies. And, he was absolutely, as soon as I put him up close to my chin, licked my chin and neck and, was like, oh yeah, you're cool. So I just won me over. The whole personality. I think sometimes that's just it.
Yep. There's a great comment there from Dan Weaver. Independent with the desire to be close. That's what we want. And so that was awesome. So we're really looking forward to bringing number 9 home and giving him and revealing his name. That's going to be pretty cool. So
he'll have to make it.
Yeah.
It'd be hard though.
So that's kind of what we've been up to. Susie and I have something pretty exciting coming up this week that we'll tell you about next Sunday. That'll be pretty cool. But I think some of the freeze dried foods and things are going to be fun to try.
If I can keep them in stock.
If you can keep them in stock is the big thing too.
It's so hard. I just think, woof, gosh, I don't think I was ready to pay the price for the extra large, but sometimes I look at the medium and go, wow, with our family, I'm gonna have to hide this stuff. But they know I'm doing it because it sits there working for, a day. So they're all like, what? Oh man,
Yep. So it's going to be also, it's, when it's new, it's your,
well, yeah,
there's all that.
that
Once
newness will
once
wear
everyone
off.
is like knows, okay, this is this is that, we'll go probably more into storage mode
I hope
than to
so.
just gobble
I
it down,
get,
mow down mode
yeah,
on the
if I
freeze
can
dried
get through
foods.
some of the front, I think we were trying some fruits just to see how they tasted and how they liked them, and they definitely like the freeze dried fruits. So
Yeah.
but my kids in general like fruit. So
Well, we're getting to be about 40 minutes in, and we don't like to keep you guys on too late.
yeah.
But we want to talk a little bit more about bees tonight before we cut loose. So let's see. We covered spring is here, whether you like it or not. So a couple things to think about. Make sure you're considering how far along your bees are, where you want them to go, and maybe consider feed. Maybe consider thinking about that, and don't be so knee-jerk reaction just to do what everyone is telling you to do on the internet. Mother Nature knows what's going on, so get in line with her, and I think that will go a lot further with your bees looking to those cues than to looking at a calendar. But I want to go ahead and take some questions about whatever you guys have questions for. We've got a couple already started here. Our buddy Tennessee Tim McCandless says, "Hey Susie, you've got to do some cantaloupe."
That's a good idea. Yes. We got to do some cantaloupe.
Brian Walkinspaw.
Do it, don't. Oh my
He's going to get
gosh,
us. He's going to get me in trouble with the. Can you imagine freeze-dried donuts for learning yard days? Actually, that might be kind of fun. Which donuts should we freeze dry?
I mean, you mean
Donald's glazed?
Donald's glazed, probably that
Donald's
would be pretty
donuts.
good.
Get them.
I wonder if I should cut them if I try to do them.
I don't know.
I basically what I did is we did mini ice cream sandwiches and I cut them into like fifths, and that actually they froze dry really quick.
So here I see this tray, and then I see this canister, and it looks like little tiny miniature ice cream sandwiches. And I asked Susie, I said,
this was funny.
The freeze dryer shrank the ice cream sandwiches? Like I'm eating an entire ice cream sandwich in one little bite. She goes, no, you knucklehead. I cut those things up.
Yeah.
But I thought that was pretty crazy.
Oh.
But we've been having a lot of fun. Hope you guys are too. Got a couple questions here. Todd Prater from Loma Vista Bee Co. up in, I think it's in Northern California, asked a great question. Can we have a brief discussion on DCAs, just basic content to set them up, maintain them, and why they are important? That is a fantastic question because it's easy to overlook some of the things that we don't have the experience or enough revolutions of something to understand. It's easy to say all we need to keep our bee yard moving forward or to move our bee yard forward is good genetics. And that's true. But the genetic conversation, and oftentimes, unfortunately, stops at the queen. And while queens are absolutely crucial to moving the needle positive direction for your bees and your apiary, drones are extremely important. I'm going to throw this little piece of information out there. And if you want to ridicule and make fun of me, that's totally cool. I've got, as you can see, I've got thick skin and bones. I'll be okay. But I sometimes get tired of folks saying that drones only have one job to do, and that's to mate a queen. I really feel deep inside that there's a lot more to drones than just that. I don't know exactly what it is, but I do feel like drones serve maybe higher purposes than just that. Now, I know that sounds crazy, and that maybe sounds a little bit woo-woo, but try sugar dusting drones, and then go as you go in one colony, and then spend the next 3 or 4 hours colonies and seeing how many of those white drones are you finding throughout all your different colonies. We have colonies that are being visited by drones, your drones, somebody else's drones, other colonies' drones, and I guess they could be going and just having a smorgasbord and just sample. It's like they're going down the aisles at Sam's Club and they're just getting a little bit of this and little free samples of this and eating from this colony and this eating from that colony. As silly as this sounds, I often wonder sometimes about drones if bees communicate on such a high level that we can't even really understand. And we want to play it down and they're just bugs doing this and there's bugs doing that. And then we try to say, well, I guess bees do this waggle dance thing and it's this very beautiful orientation dance to let everybody know where everything is, and we accept that. They're passing along information. I really feel like maybe drones are kind of like the intel collecting part of a hive, where they are out gathering intel, collecting information, not only in the colonies in the yard, but other colonies in their area. What's interesting when you think about the drone's purpose is, yeah, they made a queen. They say that drones from a queen's colony don't actually mate with that queen. It's an amazing thing to think about, that when a colony has abundance and they have all of their needs met and they've grown past what that situation can hold, they swarm. Mama queen, half of those colonies start to get things ramped up. They eventually start to swarm. But one of the things they do before that is they start making a lot of drones. Well, those drones aren't necessarily to mate with the virgin queen that will be left behind in that colony. They're doing that for the betterment of the community, for colonies in the yard and colonies in the area. And I think that's a big deal. Yeah, I almost feel like there is more going on with drones than just mating. Like maybe they're collecting information. They're getting a better understanding of what is going on. What exactly that means, I don't know, but I just feel like there's more going on to them. So that being said, it is important. You got to have drones in a mating situation to get your queens mated well. It doesn't take a lot. There's so many different conversations, anywhere from 7 drones to 30. And I know Keith Della playing in an interview with Bob Benny, talking about polyandry, had some great conversations about drones, and that it can be 25 up to 30. I think even at the 32, 35, that's a tremendous amount of drone diversity, and that's huge. And what they're finding is that queens that have the highest amount of genetic diversity are the queens that are doing better, performing higher, and have lots of other attributes that go along with it. So why is it important to consider drones even if you're making a couple queens? Well, because the more genetic diversity that we can have to breed with our queens, the higher quality queens that we're going to have, but also the more genetic diversity in the drones that those queens are going to leave behind for the community. That's a big deal. We kind of have a very unique situation here at Nature's Image Farm, where we're kind of in our own island. We have control of the genetics in our area. The only beekeepers that are close to us also have our genetics. What's interesting about that is we're also on these big ridge tops, to where at the highest point we might be at like 1,070 feet above sea level. When we get all the way down to the very, very bottom of the ravines, I mean down deep, we're down 750 feet or so. So we have several hundred feet of elevation change over the course of 102 acres or so. What's interesting is between that farm, the old farm, and our homestead, we're kind of located in an area where we can surround several of our queen yards in half-mile to three-quarter-mile radiuses, surrounding all of those with our genetics and with our drones. So one of the things that I think makes our queens so special is that we have such a intense drone congregation areas. DCAs are short for drone congregation areas. Is a mate with the queens as they lift off for their mating flights. We're able to really dial in, I think, that saturation by, number one, we've got, every year as we get through the wintertime, prior to that, at the end of the year, we really have several colonies that we have earmarked that we are keeping a close eye on to say, hey, these colonies are fantastic. These queens are doing beautifully. Things that we really like about them. And then we keep an eye on that. As they come out through the winter, we watch how they build, we watch how they do, we watch how they grow. And then by the time we get in the 1st of April, we know which will be our breeder queens that we will make all of our queens from that year. When we do that, we are always putting green frames in all of those genetic attributes, those colonies that we want to move forward. We are loading them full of green drone frames. And then after we have all of these different queens from different queen mothers over all these years throughout all of our yards, breeding from the very best year after year after year, we now have such an intense drone diversity. We're taking those green frames, we'll take those green frames and take those out to their production colonies that are surrounding where all of our queen mating yards are. And it's a really easy way that we can select the genetics that we want. We can put those green frames in, let them make all the drones on the green frames, and then take those green out to all the surrounding areas and be loading all of these production colonies with the drones that we want. And we're able to surround our mating yards in all directions in a 1.5 mile radius of every single queen yard. Like, that is a big deal, and that's a luxury, and it's a blessing to be able to have that kind of a situation. And I think that's one of the, if we had a secret on why I think our queens are doing so well for folks across the country, is because they have such enormous opportunities for mating and to have that diversity. And so I think that's important. So Todd, great to talk all night long and just geek out where everyone is absolutely just tired of hearing me talk about drones. But yeah, drones, we got to have them for mating. I think they do a lot more than that. And we try to just.
The funnest thing about them is they don't sting me.
Okay. So that's actually, so one of the little things that we do, especially with beginning beekeepers. So if you're tuning in tonight and will be your first year at the learning yard,
Greg has all the bee puns.
I have got a lot of bee puns.
Yeah.
First off, thanks for your support. Secondly, just keep this a secret, okay? If you see this little trick happening, just go with the flow, because it's so fun when folks don't know what it is. But sometimes we'll have a beginning beekeeper that's a little apprehensive. Yeah. They're a little nervous. They're a little timid, understandably.
Yeah.
We don't force anybody. We work at their speed. You can engage at your rate, but you can tell when someone is almost ready to get in there.
Yeah.
And I'll just look at them and I'll say, "Do you trust me?" And at first they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, this guy is asking me if I trust him. If I say no, I don't trust you, then he's going to think I'm weird. And if I say yes, I trust him, what does that mean?" And so I'll ask somebody, "Do you trust me?" And they say, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, I want you to close your eyes and put out your hand." And then I'll pull a drone bee, and I'll put that drone inside the palm of their hand. I have them close their hand, and I'll say, "Okay, we can tell if you're going to be a good beekeeper or not. Count to 10, open your eyes, open your hand." And now you can see their eyes, they can feel it, something squirming and buzzing, and they count, and then they open up their hand, and the drone flies off. And what's beautiful about that is I've seen it in so many people. Something changes. Just in that 10 seconds, something changes. A light switch goes off on the inside where they have just built an amount of confidence, not cockiness, but confidence, encouragement, that now they're pumped up and they thought, "Oh my gosh, I just held that bee for 10 seconds and it didn't sting me." And now they're ready to get in there, get inside of the hive, and they feel like, "Hey, I'm going to do it. And if Greg said if it didn't sting me in 10 seconds, I'm going to be a good beekeeper." Man, I've seen so many folks turn into amazing beekeepers, and it started off with just that drone. But the fun thing, now this is the secret, the fun thing about drones, if you didn't know, if this is your first bee chat tonight, is drones don't have stingers, so they can't sting. But that doesn't make it any less creepy to be holding a bee in your hand that you have no idea that didn't have a stinger.
That's right.
And so that's a fun thing to do. So I enjoy little things like that. But
It is fun.
I'm really, I
watch.
can't wait for the Learning Yard this year. There's so many great folks that are going to be coming back from last year. So many new folks this year. The space is going to be bigger inside of the shop too, where we can spread out, get a lot more folks in there. And what's so amazing is when we're walking between the buildings and we walk into last year's Learning Yard space, it blows my mind that, yeah, it was tight and it was cramped and it was small, but it will always be special that that was the launching pad for it all. And it was just, looking back, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's a good reminder for everybody out there that it's not about the place. It's not about the amenities. It's not about the wall hangings and how nice and tidy everything is.
How fancy and how many tables and chairs and pretty table covers and all the fanciness of the buildings. It really is about the people.
It's it.
Yeah.
It's about the people. It's just providing a place,
yeah,
where people can gather and they can fellowship and they can have that sense of community. That's what makes the Learning Yard special. And so this year is going to be, I really can't wait. It's going to be awesome. There's another question here from Jonathan Bennett. And Jonathan asked, Greg, how strong of a split do you normally start nukes with? That's a great question.
That's a great question.
There are different ways to make nukes that have a different purpose. If a nuke is something that you are building to sell, that's going to look a lot different than a nuke that is going into your yard as a backup, as a resource. It's sort of different. When I'm pulling nukes to make nukes for customers, I tend to build them on the heavy side. I tend to build them more on the conservative side, where as those nukes are kind of building up and they're doing those things, it might be 3 really strong jamming frames with 2 frames that they need to kind of throw out. By the time that we drop a cell and the queen comes back and mate and starts laying up a storm, right? And we have bees that are hatching. Now we have 5 frames that are absolutely beautiful. And sometimes we might have to thin that nuke down. I would much rather thin a nuke down than to have a nuke that's just too light to sell to somebody. If I look at that nuke and it's not a nuke, if I don't, this is my own goofy metric. But when I look at that nuke and I say, oh my gosh, I don't want to see this leave. This is a beautiful nuke. Then I have to remind myself, those are the only nukes that should be leaving my yard. So I would rather a nuke be doing so well that I have to thin down some than to have one that is too lean I have to somehow bolster. So it depends on the life cycle, the time cycle, when your queens are going to be on, when they're going to be ready. But most nukes that we sell, we'll start with 3 jamming frames, let them build out, and if everything is just going perfectly, and I have to pull some nectar out or pull 1 frame of brood out of there so they've got enough room to just keep growing at the right speed, I will. If we're making nukes for like backups, if we're just growing our outfit in our yard, I will make some of the leanest, scare your socks off kind of a split into a nuke, where it can just be 1 frame of bees and that queen cell, a frame of food, and 3 fresh frames to draw out and just let them cruise and let them build up and do their thing. Where all I have to do is just monitor them, let them build up, and if they're in an actual nuke box, then they get upgraded to a 10 frame single when the time is right. And then maybe they get a super on top of them going into the fall time, and maybe not. Maybe they're just a very lean split that gets to a 10 frame single. I keep them healthy and they cruise through the wintertime. So that's 2 kind of complete opposites. One is I make a nuke really, really heavy because it's a cheap insurance plan that nuke is going to be a beautiful jam and nuke for a customer. But then the nukes that I make for myself, I tend to make a light side because I can monitor them and I can always pull brood or food from other production colonies to bolster and boost them up if they're just too far behind. So those are great questions there. it's just about that time to
Yeah.
really, as we've been
I've been
putting,
watching the conversation. It was just all the storms and the power outages and everybody dealing with all that stuff. So
there's a, yeah,
it's been crazy
you know, I don't,
weather.
if you're in Ohio or the Midwest, leave us a comment here below. But Susan and I were just talking about this. It happened a lot last year. It happened a little last year.
Not even as much as this year already.
But what's going on this year?
I think we're getting a lot of what usually comes across from the west and just hits as snowstorm after snowstorm, or that, that Canadian wind blows down and comes across like lake effect snows and stuff like that. But this year it seems like we're getting these warm weather pushes up from the south and the cold weather that comes across from the west, and they're hitting each other and creating these really vicious high wind advisories every single week, drowning rains. I mean, there was a 1 to 2 inch rain warning. It's just been crazy. And we're just now the first week of March. It's been a lot, where we should have had this deep set into winter for the end of January into February. We've had windstorms and 70-degree days at least once each week for the last 4 weeks. So it's been really weird.
It forces you to look at your management and your equipment a little differently too.
Yeah.
In the past, where we can stack nukes and not have to strap them or do anything,
not so much.
You really can't do that anymore. We're out constantly worrying or up late, through the night when you hear the trees howling and it sounds like freight trains all night long, and the trees are just, they're just doing this, and you're just thinking, oh no.
You're just thinking what's going to rip off or blow over.
What's going to blow over. And the fact of the matter is, when you get to a certain scale, there's no way in the world you're going out there with hundreds of ratchet straps to button everything down, nor are you busting that many going through a colony.
Right.
But what we've noticed is everything on a 4-way or on the ground, no problem.
Yeah.
Zero problem. But anything that is, up off the ground on a stand, those are the ones that are just so incredibly vulnerable that if we only had 20 or 30 colonies, I would rather them be on hive stands and ratchet strap them.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, we have too many colonies for that. We can't. We do raise some of the colonies on hive stands because it's been nice. It's easier on my back. But the fact of the matter is, once you lose 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 because of wind or anything else, you kind of have to compromise and put together a different plan. So a lot of our colonies, we've been moving towards 4-way pallets. We're going to keep using a lot of 4-ways. We're going to keep using a lot of 2-way pallets. And then the ones that are going to be raised up off the ground, we just can't keep them as high as I've wanted to in the past. And then it might also be, we might have to change up the configuration. 5x5s, 5-frame nuke boxes stacked up has been beautiful, but it doesn't do you any good if you're not strapping them down and they're blowing over and you're picking them up in the middle of the night. I mean, you can only do that so many times before it can really cost you. So that being said, one of the interesting things about beekeeping is you have to find the management that works for your goals within your context and the scale that you're working in. And that's going to be different for absolutely everybody. So I figure this out. It's going to be interesting to see, kind of what we kind of put together. But, that's just part of beekeeping. As part of farming is always changing. The weather is definitely changing. I am not a global warming alarmist. I'm not even going down that road. But what I'm saying is things are changing, and the weather, the winds especially, are getting really intense. We at the farm here, down by the pond, there is a windmill, and this windmill has been here for, I can't tell you how long. And just in the last 2 years, the windmill has suffered so much damage to where during the last storm, it absolutely just folded the windmill up.
Yeah.
And it's done. It is beyond repair.
That
windmill's been there for 20 years.
Yeah, it's been in
And
there.
so we're just now getting wind events so intense that it's just so a lot of things are changing. More down trees than we have ever seen before.
Twisted and yeah,
So David Lewis,
chopped.
great comment down here that the only constant is change,
Yep,
and
that's right.
that's a fact.
Yep, you have to be willing to constantly pivot and adjust.
Yep. There was a follow-up question here. Great question too, uh, by Todd Necht. I've been told queens fly 5 miles to mate drones. That drones fly. Let me rephrase that. I've been told that queens fly 5 miles to mate, and that drones fly 2 miles. Is this true? Great question. You will hear so much information that I couldn't even begin to tell you which piece of information you should look to. But I will say that I'm really fascinated with the work of Keith Delaplane. Keith Delaplane, of course, a classic Queen books like Lawrence Connor have been around for a long time too. And you'll see that I think a lot of folks who have not only studied DCAs, but have studied queen breeding personally, you're going to find, I think, that a lot of the queen mating flights, how far they need to be from their drones, really is only about a half a mile for the most part. Um, there is so much different information that could go either way on that. We're spread out to where we've got about a 2 mile radius that no matter which direction they leave from the mating yard, they have drones a half a mile in all directions. So no matter which way that they go, they're as close as maybe a quarter mile, but depending on which end of the yard or which drone areas, you could be upwards of maybe a mile and a half of that. So which is right, which is wrong? I don't really know. What I do know is we have a very intense drone saturation here, and it seems to be evident by um, things that I didn't even know were a thing. And that is the fun thing when you try to balance out the science of something and then the field observation of something. What I've noticed is that when we've put a lot of effort into creating drones in the yards that we have, our queen quality went through the roof. Not only are we seeing the queens do great things, but folks all across the country are saying very similar things. To me, that was okay. That was great. When I really enjoyed that talk with Bob Benny and Keith Delaplane talking about polyandry, and there was things in that talk you should definitely check out. But when you talk about when queen quality, sure, there's lots of things that contribute to a queen's quality. But one of the the most simplest things that you can do is having a queen that's mated with as many drones as possible. Keith had a lot of great little studies and charts and things in there, but no matter what they were trying to do, they were seeing pros and benefits and everything when the queens were bred with the most amount of drones. So all I can say is I don't know what the magic number really is. I can tell you in my neck of the woods, if you can get drone yards a half a mile away from your mating areas, and you can surround them and all if half a mile to a mile in all directions, it seems to be tremendous, and it seemed to help out a lot. So that's a great follow up question there. I could talk queens and bees all night long, but I'm really behind on the comments here. If you guys have any questions before we jump off tonight, go ahead and drop them now. Otherwise, we're going to probably start to wind this thing down. What's Susie? What's something that you're really interested in putting in the freeze jar that you haven't tried yet?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I want to try oh, I made an egg bake this morning and I do want to put that in the freeze dryer. So but I think there's a lot of requests for more apples. So I don't know if I don't know what to do. There's so many things I want to do. So hopefully those extra trays come soon and I can get, I can just have a constant rotation of things frozen, ready to go back in, because that can take a little bit of time if you don't have it pre-frozen.
I did get a pro tip from Scott Boring on the apples is when you slice your apples, drizzle them with a little caramel.
What?
And I guess you just take the apples to the next level.
I bet you do.
Pro tip.
I don't think you need caramel apples, Greg.
I don't need apples or fruit or any of that stuff. Trying to stay on keto, I don't.
Why did you eat most of the quart container of bananas?
Because I was bad. Because I backslid in my ketoism, I guess. There.
Oh, that's funny. Oh,
I went to church today, so it balanced it out.
Yeah, sure.
Balanced it out. So
pray over your bananas.
Mm-hmm. But we've got a question here. Let's see if we can pop it up. Dry cut honey. Question: what is your procedure for cutting off feed before the flow? I think new beekeepers need to know how to keep feed separate from honey. That is a fantastic question. And there's so much nuance to that even if you cut off your feed to your colonies, doesn't mean that there's another beekeeper or a ballpark or anything anywhere else that the bees can't be going and getting and somehow bringing in fructose or feed or anything else and bringing it back to the colony and somehow turning it into honey or storing it to use. That's there. You're going to have a percentage of that no matter what you try to do. However, as a beekeeper and trying to put the best practice in motion, I think one thing that we do is there's a couple different things kind of going on within that question. Number one, if you're feeding, why are you feeding? That's the number thing. And before you even say don't feed your bees, it creates welfare bees, and don't even get me started on that, because that's a story for a different day, as we'll say. And no, I don't agree with that statement at all. There are very specific reasons to feed bees, and once you understand that, a lot of the timing and the purpose of feeding your bees a lot of times doesn't really even coincide with pulling an exorbitant amount of honey off that colony at that time. For us, in our context, raising nukes, it's going to be a problem for us to have feed in our honey, because those bees are in a growth stage to where we're using the feed really for most of the year for one purpose. And I think a lot of folks, if you're tuning in, you've bought a package from us this year or a nuke, this is going to be information that we're definitely going to cover in a lot more detail live here at the Learning Yard. But when we feed the bees, our primary goal is to have those bees have that feed as an immediate and direct source of carbohydrates. When they have those carbohydrates, they can make the wax platelets, they can sweat the wax. Now they can draw the comb and build the cupboards to store all the groceries, meaning the fresh pollen and the fresh nectar. So if you have a colony that you are pulling honey from, you can 100% still totally feed them, but know what the feed is for. Primarily, the feed is there to draw the comb so they have a place to store the nectar. If we don't feed them and we just let them cruise and try to wait until they have a nectar source in for the carbohydrates, sometimes you might miss the flow completely. Because if they aren't able to have the wax platelets developed and to sweat and to grow and to actually draw out and the comb, if they're waiting on the nectar flow to do that, you might miss it completely. So if you can give them those carbohydrates ahead of time so they can actually draw the comb, once you see your comb drawn or nearly drawn, before you start to see them store any of the feed, now you can back that feed off. You can take the feed off and take it out of the equation completely. From that point forward, you know that at least with your management, the only feed that you have on any of your colonies is only to get them to build wax and not to actually store the feed. So the short answer is feed those bees until the foundation is drawn out enough that they can store the pollen and nectar in. And then totally, if you're going to be pulling a honey crop, pull that feed off. In the fall time, it's a little bit different, because if we are bulking up or we're making up for a poor flow, that feed's going to be on there. And so if you are feeding heavily in the fall, you might want to just go ahead and say that goldenrod, whatever does come in, is not for me, it's for the bees, and let them have it. And truth be told, it's a lot easier to let the bees have the goldenrod and you take the spring and summer and then feed and build them up. The spring and summer honey, it crystallizes way, way, way slower, much easier to deal with than goldenrod honey. Yes, goldenrod honey has its place, but it's a pain in the neck. You can't see it behind us. Let's see, behind Susie.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
We've got a Hilco 30-gallon warmer that's just full of goldenrod. We keep it in there because otherwise it's in buckets and it's hard as a rock, and you're digging it out and trying to do something with it. It is such a pain. So we keep it gently warming here in the bottling tank and just bottle it as we need it. So that's a whole different thing. So feed your bees until the comb is drawn. If you aren't going to be pulling if you're not going to be pulling honey off that colony, then you can maybe keep that feed on there just a little bit longer. For me, it's a cheap insurance policy to keep feed on any colony that I want to do nothing but just build comb and build comb and build comb. I will keep the feed on those colonies kind of nearly all season long. On nukes and splits, I keep the feed on all season long too. I would rather them have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And that's where feeding with bucket feeders is huge. If you're not familiar with that, check out our videos. Go to our website at nature'simagefarm.com. You can check out the bucket feeders, see if that's a good fit for you. But bucket feeding is also a great way to where how you feed is also as important as when you feed, because feeding with a bucket with a trickle effect over a colony is not the same as feeding from a frame feeder or a top hive feeder. It's completely different. You get into some, like a frame feeder can be nearly a straight gorge mode, where it's a gorge store. Yeah, they're going to sweat. They're going to produce a lot of wax. You might need to build some weight really, really quick. You can totally do it that way. But for us, bucket feeders gives a steady trickle flow throughout the entire season. I really do feel like it helps our queens lay longer and more uniform, because that colony it's like they're getting that constant trickle effect on the colony from the bucket. And so for us, it works out really great. On nearly all of our colonies right now, everything has a bucket on it, and they have all winter long. The bucket's been flipped up. So if we do get a nice day where it's warm, we can flip that bucket over and we can feed them. Inside of those buckets is ProSweet. That doesn't freeze. It doesn't go bad. It's feed on demand if they need it. And that's a conversation we'll get into at the end of this coming year, because we're already through the winter time. So it doesn't really, I'm not sure how much value folks would find in a conversation on winter feeding, whether it's good or bad, but it is something that we definitely practice. But we are using bucket feeders and we are using ProSweet to do it. And so that's kind of a different thing, kind of altogether. Susie, you're able to see the questions a lot better than I am, so I'm probably missing a lot of the questions there. But if you have supers that need drawn, when should you put those on? That's a question from Droning Outdoors. I think that really depends on where you're at. If you need supers drawn, are we talking about our production colony? Are we talking about a split? I would say, like this time of year, like right now, we are getting very close to it's time to feed liquid feed. We are feeding out of buckets with ProSweet when we get warm days, but I don't think I would be putting 1-to-1 in a bucket right now.
It's been too cold at night.
It's been too cold at night. That's a little bit too much work to do. But
that constant flux can be hard on them.
It can. You know, the argument of increasing the humidity of a hive with liquid feed, there's so many folks that go either way with all that. But if you have supers that do need drawn, I think it's easiest to bees, as when the bees are starting to do that, when they're starting to make wax, then that's when I would put the feed on and have them actually start to do it. It's way easier to work with them than to try to force them to do things that they're not quite ready for. So when you start to notice, in your early inspections that you're seeing a lot of bird comb and they're putting wax in all kinds of goofy places, hey, that's a light bulb moment. They want to build wax. How can we get them to build more wax? Yeah, put those foundations in, give them that steady supply of carbohydrates, and let them just sweat the wax, work it up, and build comb. That's what we do, is we try to use throughout different times of the year, play to that. The times that they want to build comb, let them build comb. The times of the year that they want to make queens, let them make queens. And the time that they just want to store back and cruise, we let them do that too. And we kind of base our goals around what they already have that inclination to do that time of the year.
That's right.
So,
Victor had a question.
Great question.
Right below, when are your queens going to be available?
Victor, thanks for the question there. Our queens are available. Right now we still do have availability for the end of June. We have July that's going to be available. You're going to see a lot of folks are going to get off the bandwagon on ordering early queens. Folks are going to be getting off the bandwagon on making all of their splits the first of the year. And I think there's a lot of missed opportunities for folks who are only splitting colonies in the spring and who are buying queens wherever they can, from wherever they can in the country, to get them as early as possible. I think they're missing a lot of opportunities. And I think a lot of times they're walking over that dollar to pick up a nickel. And the reason, and we've talked about that before, but I think there is something to be said about building a colony up even with a queen, getting them into that essence, that vibe where there's a jamming colony ready to do all the things that a mature colony can do, especially going when that queen is a solstice queen. When those queens are made in that part of the summer and they're going through the winter and they come out of the spring, they are just absolutely tremendous. And I really am trying to get folks to consider not requeening early spring, but requeening late summer or early fall with those solstice queens. You'll have a fresher queen going through the wintertime. When she comes out of the spring, that colony, she's really coming into her like full maturity, her full essence of what she does. You can capitalize on that because she won't, number one, be as swarmy as that queen that was made in the spring prior, right? She's not a completely a year old now. She's a little bit less than that. So you have less swarm tendency. With our genetics, with the Caucasians, they swarm less anyway. So that's a huge benefit. But you're able to, by requeening later in the year, you're able to get a honey crop early in the spring and summertime. You can afford now to put those treatments on. And if you lose a queen because of a treatment, you're already planning on requeening late summer, early fall anyways. So you can start to time your treatment program right just ahead of any requeening opportunities. And so now you have this system that is moving a little bit more succinctly with all the things that you need to happen in the yard with the bees, with pulling honey, treating, and then requeening. Now, of course, if you're making splits, you're trying to make a bazillion splits the first part of the year, you can certainly do that. But that's a conversation too we could have later about what is the most amount of splits we can make with the least amount of resources. How do we do that? I know tomorrow is Monday night, and I'll be speaking at the Guernsey Noble Bee Club here in Ohio. We're going to talk about hard lessons learned in the growing a bee yard, and there's going to be some topics on raising queens and making splits that I think a lot of folks haven't really thought about. There's a lot of easy ways to do things, and to do them that way first, and to use that to build that experience up as you kind of develop and try to do more of those advanced things in your bee yard. It really sets you up for success, doing things, a couple of things that we're going to talk about tomorrow night. Let's see what else here. I'm going to cruise through the questions here. I'm really behind here. Let's see. Oh, Randy, we were just talking about you and Elizabeth earlier. All good things. Don't get scared. But we were showing off your hat. See, there it is. Hat and t-shirts earlier there. Randy says tomorrow he's going to be splitting the hive with that queen you brought down last year, Greg. So that's awesome. Old Randy is going to have a Pepto Pink queen down there. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Randy, I'm looking forward to seeing what that queen does for you. For sure. I'm going to cruise through the questions here, and let's see. We're going to take a couple more, and then we're going to jump off. We don't really go real long on Sunday nights, but I love talking about bees. We have a big day tomorrow and a big week coming up. So we'll take a couple more questions.
And then I'm going to bed.
And then we're going to bed.
We got co-op tomorrow.
We're already kind of past our bedtime.
I know.
We're kind of, that's just what we do. From a question from Kevin Kaplan, would you treat in the late summer before your requeen split, or split and then treat going into fall, winter? And the answer is yes on both. I think you've got two separate opportunities there that you can treat. I would consider treating after you pull your honey. So for most folk, at least in this neck of the woods, July 4th is right about that time. Where that gets a little bit tricky is if you're using something like formic or something that's really heat sensitive, then you need to time that appropriately. And you look for that window, that 3-day window where you're going to be in the temperature parameter that you want to, and then go ahead and do that. What's great about that is if you do lose a queen or you have an issue with the queen after a treatment, if you're already planning on and you have your queens lined up, it's no problem at all. Matter of fact, you might, for something like formic, if it's or let's say, like even if you're going Apogard, Apogard has been, not terribly harsh on the bees. It has ran and has caused some colonies to abscond, like if they're in 5-gram nukes or so. But if you can time your queens arriving to be after when you're treating, it gives you a couple opportunities. Number one, you've already pulled your honey off, right? So you don't have to worry about treatments in your honey. You treat them. If they do abscond, if you do have an issue with the queen, you have a backup plan coming, right? That's a huge opportunity. The next biggest thing is now you have a colony that was healthy enough to make a honey crop. They withstood whatever treatment that you put on there, and now you have clean bees to do something with. You take those clean bees and then split them out and then add your queens. What you'll notice is that those nukes and those splits coming off of a treatment that are clean, you will see them grow at a rate that you've never seen before. And the reason I say that is before we split. Yeah, there was brood breaks and it was the things that we're doing to try to keep the bees healthy. But when we were more intentional about keeping the production in the larger colonies healthier that we're actually pulling splits from, man, it was just like the split. It was exponential. The growth was through the roof. You have bees that have it sounds silly, but bees coming off of treatments that are well fed, they just have a sheen to them. It's like they have a coat. They're slicked back. They just not slick like greasy, but they just have a sparkle to them that otherwise that they don't. And for me, that's a beautiful time to start getting all those splits, adding all those queens. So yes. The second part of your question was to split and then treat going into fall and winter. Totally. You can totally do that too. But I would not wait. One thing I would not want to do, and I mean this respectfully, our queens are about $40 a piece from like 1 to 9. There's price breaks at 10 to 19 and then 20 plus, right? But queens that are raised right and that they are shipped to you next day air, you're going to have $40 to $32 to $40 per queen, depending on how many you buy. Okay. For us to ship those queens into any part of the country, for the most part, is anywhere from 60 to 50. We're going UPS next day air. So they get to you as fresh as possible with the least amount of risk of losing them for all the millions of reasons that everybody else seems to lose queens. Yeah. So when you take into consideration, no matter what you do, you have over $100 in at least one queen and or more to get queens to you. Let's think about that as an investment. Let's make sure that we're setting up the asset before to be healthy and ready to grow before we invest in it further with those queens. Yeah. So you could certainly, if you took sick bees and split them and then added queens, you're kind of doing the queen and you a disservice for the money you just invested, because you might not have a colony strong enough to even put a workforce together for that queen. Yeah. And where you might look at it and say, hey, what's wrong with these queens? They're not laying, or they're not doing this, and there's no numbers and they're dwindling off. Well, that has to do with the health of the bees before the queen came. So consider getting your treatments done first and then your splits too. Or if you have to make them in the spring, get those early oxalic acid treatments on. Like Susie, you did a great job getting out there and getting oxalic acid on those colonies before we had sealed brood. That's a tremendous opportunity early in the year. So no matter what we're doing with those bees, making splits for nukes, or they're going to be for production, they're strong, they're healthy, they're vibrant. Now, every investment that we put into that asset is going to grow at a way faster and more productive rate than if we're trying to just crutch along sick bees all year long. So that's a great question. So I'm just gonna cruise down through here, and boy, I'm starting to get a little back in my throat there, starting to. And
I don't see anything else. I'm sorry, I'm sipping on your coffee. I was getting tired. I had a long day, long weekend.
I have to be careful because, as you can see here, I have Varroa Mike with me, and
you could get sick if he attaches to you.
No, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. Should I tell that funny story about the bat in our bedroom?
No.
I got two funny stories, and then I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready?
Okay. Go for it.
Number one story. Last Sunday, if you notice, we got on just a little bit late.
Well, it was just a hair.
So Susie and I are sitting here in the office, and we're trying to okay, what are the couple of the things that we want to talk about, right?
Write notes.
And we're sitting here, and we heard a something sounded like it was getting the holy heck choked out of it.
Either a dog was getting mauled or something was happening.
Something was dying, and something was dying in a hurry.
Yeah.
And Susie bolts out of here.
Yeah.
She calls for the dog, and they're up to the chicken coop. As they're running up to the chicken coop, I'm running in the house and grabbing a shotgun.
Yeah.
What do you see when you go up to the chicken coop? I
see my only rooster I let live because he was the nicest looking. And his neck, the back of his neck is literally in the raccoon's mouth. And the rooster is just trying so hard to get away from him. But he's got him pinned. I mean, this thing was ginormous. And my rooster wasn't so small to begin with. So I start screaming and whacking on the door and, hitting the spotlight in this raccoon's eyes. And Maybelle comes right up behind me. She was there before I was. Basically, she can run a lot faster than me, but she is just all corners. She can't get to the sides quick enough. She is trying to get at this raccoon, but I thought better than to let her inside the coop because I thought, well, what if it gets out? I want it to be gone. But not, with rabies and everything else, I had no clue what this thing carried. So she actually started growling and getting after it on the outside of the chicken run, and it crawled all the way up to the top of the cage. It's enclosed chicken run, and she kept it there barking at it, trying to act like she was going to get after it for several minutes until Greg got up there and took care of it, and now it's gone to be with Jesus.
Well, I hate to be so gruesome, and forgive me if there's young ears in the cornfield, but let's just say that coon won't have the guts to do that again, will he?
No, I don't feel bad. I mean, luckily the rooster's actually still living. That was a funny joke.
That was funny. I didn't.
Yeah,
I'm so tired. I didn't even hit the funny buttons there.
But
that was awesome. That rooster has been 5 o'clock in the morning, just letting loose, and it's awesome to hear that. I don't know if the coon. Did you see? Did the coon have the chicken by the neck, with his paw?
The back of the neck.
Oh, his hand. He was grabbed. Okay.
Yeah. No. The whole
his
mouth.
Okay. So luckily he had the chicken by the back of the neck. If you would have had that rascal from the front of the neck,
yeah, it'd have been a different story.
He
had literally his whole mouth was full of feathers. So the chicken was going to get it if I didn't get up there.
Okay. I got one more question and one more funny story. And the question is from Larimore Farm. Sorry, I didn't see it earlier there. We got to find a better way to see the comments as they come in rather than feeling like we're always behind there. But great question, Larimore Farms, and thanks, Paul Hale, for saying to check out this question. The question is, I got one. A question. I found swarm cells in a large colony. If I was to split the colony in half, brood and all, 10 cells total, 2021 queen, would you pinch the queen and let the cells fight it out? Great question. And I would say it depends. What I would consider doing is if you have a colony, and Larimore, I apologize, I'm not sure where you're at in the country, but if you have swarm cells already on queen cells in there, you're warmer than me. If you are not warmer than me and you are finding just a boatload of queen cells right now, that's early. And when I mean early, if you weren't also seeing lots of drones walking around and you're seeing a colony that's putting on those cells, the first thing I would do is pinch every single one of those queen cells. And then I would replace that queen in the very near future, because there is this, I don't know what to call it, and I'm not an alarmist, but I have seen in cool climates where folks, this is a very long story and I can't go into all the details tonight, but I have seen where folks put a tremendous amount of effort into catching swarms that were in March in the northern parts of Ohio. And they had 20, 30, 40 that all came out of a very isolated part of Ohio. And they built the colonies up and they built them up and they had trouble keeping the bees in boxes, but they finally kept the bees just had a swarm tendency, it seemed like, all year long. The bees went through the wintertime. They overwintered great. These folks started pre-selling a lot of nukes off these colonies, and we're going to get into raising queens. And then the end of February coming into March, they're all swarming or worse, absconding, which is very weird, super, super weird. So I think, I shouldn't say of course, but you hear a lot about Africanized bees, and there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions talking about it. But one of the interesting things with Africanized bees is them swarming as migratory bees per se, swarming to the flows as the flow moves. Super interesting, super fascinating. But I think that there's something to be said that there might be something going on, some kind of a genetic expression or attribute with some bees that they just want to swarm, and they want to swarm early. And if they do want to do that, even if they don't have drones or there's no drones in the area, those would be the first line of genetics that I would absolutely want to wipe out of my yards, because I just don't want bees wanting to even think about swarming that early. Now, let's say it's a beautiful colony, did well last year, made it through this winter time, and they're putting on you have capped queen cells in there, and you have drones. Oh, that gets me really excited, because I would 100% use that as an opportunity. You've already let the bees make all of the beautiful queens. I wouldn't necessarily pinch the 2021 queen. The question is, how many colonies do you want to run this year? How many splits do you want to make? And how much equipment do you have to do it? If none of those were a limiting factor, what I would do, I would take that 2021 queen, the frame that she's on, a frame of food, and I would put her into a nuke and give that little colony some fresh frames and move them to a new part in the bee yard. If you're only working in one bee yard, a couple boxes over is fine. A different hive stand is fine. 10 feet away is fine. 2 feet away is fine. But just move them from that box location to a new position somewhere in the bee yard, and let everybody else in that current location, the original location, be queenless. What I would then do is split the tar out of that box. And I mean, if you've got 20 cells, if you can put together however many 2-framed or 3-frame splits you can put together, I would do it. And I would put queen cells with every single one of those. Now, if that, split it in half and put the queen off to the side and use her as a resource colony. Think about it. If you don't, like, let's say you only have a couple hives, and why would you want to pinch that queen so early? Because what is she doing every day? She's laying eggs. She's making brood. That asset is growing if she's in a box, whether it's for that colony or to use to bolster up some resources later. So put her in a little split, a small split. Let her keep doing her thing. You still have that. You still have her as a backup queen. You still have her raising brood. Meanwhile, you take that box from that original location, at least split them in two. If it's 10 frames total, put 5 frames in a nuke, put them into a new spot, and then keep 5 frames there, and let those queen cells, let them hatch out and battle it out. So worst case scenario, you take one colony, you just made 3 easy splits. And if you want to get crazy and go to town and make even more splits, you could split that thing to split the tar out of it. Don't get me started on queen cells this late, because I get excited. And one of the great blessings, I think, of farming thing, and a lot of it is, I think, is also being a hillbilly and being frugal, is, you know, if we consider the fact that God created man in his image, when we're out here able to abundance or a blessing like a colony, split that out, I think so many of us are attracted to it because we're drawn to that creation as man. If we're made in God's image and we're created, that's something that is natural for us to do, and to feel that calling and that drive to do. There's something absolutely beautiful about taking a box of bees and splitting that into 4 different assets, or 3 or 7, or whatever that box calls for. Turning that one beautiful resource into many, and to being able to do that is such a fun thing that I cannot get enough of it. But anyways, Susie's yawning, the coffee's empty, I'm pumped up. I could talk about splits and queens for at least 2 more hours, but we're gonna cut that one off tonight. Here's the last funny story I'm gonna leave you with. So in our bedroom, the bathroom was a train wreck, an absolute night. What is? It's actually arguably
worse.
It's absolutely,
it'll get worse before it gets better.
It's arguably worse now than when it was. Anyways, tearing this bathroom out, trying to get it put back in. I had to put a new bathroom vent and light, up in the ceiling. Had to cut the ceiling out to put all the work in and the wires and all these kind of things, right? So there's a hole in the ceiling that goes up to the attic space of the house. So we're laying in bed, and there's no door now. It's an open wall that is just studs and insulation and a hole in the ceiling and no commode and just stuff everywhere, right? Well, we're laying in bed, and Susie's got where she charges her phone. It's like an alarm clock, and there's like a little dim light, and it kind of shines on the wall. And we're sitting there in bed, or we're laying in bed, and the night before, I woke up because I could hear something go bzzz and smack me in the head, and bzzz and smack me in the head, like it was making circles around the room. And I must have went back to sleep and forgot about it. Well, the next night it did it. And for whatever reason, I woke up saying, bat, bat, bat.
Which totally freaked me out. I was ready to get my pillow and go on the couch.
I'm thinking somehow there was a bat in the attic, and the bat flew in our bedroom, and it's flying around and it's smacking me on my pillow and in the head. And I get up, and we were so hard asleep. We turn the light on. I'm looking for something to swat a bat with. And so all I had next to the nightstand, I had 2 options. I had the Richard Walters gun dog book, and I had the Backwoods Home magazine. So I told magazine, and I wrapped it up, and do I have a flashlight?
I don't know.
Oh, no, I've got the spotlight. Yeah,
the spotlight.
I had a spotlight.
Yes.
And I'm spotlight, and I'm trying to look where in this bedroom is this bat hiding, because as soon as I see it, I'm going to schwack it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking. I don't see anything. And I don't see anything. And I don't see anything. I'm looking. And so now I'm thinking, oh.
Meanwhile,
in the bathroom.
I'm prepping myself for going and sleeping on the couch.
Oh, she's done. She's like, I can't believe you. I told you should have got this addition. This bathroom should have been done a month ago. And now we have bats flying in our bedroom at night. And so I'm cruising up to the bathroom. I'm trying to be the brave man here. But now I've got the bedroom's been cleared. And now I'm going into the bathroom area, and I'm thinking this bat is here somewhere.
It's hiding behind
It's
something.
As soon as I get close, the bat's going to freak out because I got it's cornered. And I'm going to have this screeching, ugly brown bat or whatever that it is flying right up my face. And all I've had is this magazine and a flashlight.
Yeah.
And I go and I look, and I look the ceiling of the bathroom, and I look, and rah! No, nothing. There wasn't anything there. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing there at all. So I grabbed some trash bag things, and I plug the hole in the ceiling, and we look around and there's nothing there, and we go to lay back down, and do you know what I see right above our head in the globe of the ceiling fan light was a whole family of stink bugs. And those rascals, I can't stand them because they do that. So they make that zzz, zzz, and they fly around, they ricochet off the walls, and they ricochet off things with that hard shell, and you can hear them like skittering off things. You can hear that buzzing sound.
Hate those things.
And they've hit me in the head in the middle of the night. Like, and so there I go up and look in the bottom of that glow of that light, and there was a whole family of stink bugs. So
no bat.
I didn't need to schwack anything. Nothing coming out of the ceiling. So I just took the globe out and took it out and got rid of the stink bugs. And but anyways, that's the story. Michael Buck knows what's up. Water Dog, Gun Dog, and Family Dog books are old but still do it right. There's something about the way those books are written. I don't do a lot of reading. I have a hard time. I've talked about it before, but I'll read through a page and then I'll say, what did I actually read? And then I'll go back and I'll read it again. And then about the third time reading a page in a book, and I realize that I have no idea what I'm actually reading, but my brain just went somewhere else. I just have a hard time in books sometimes, but those books I can just read. You know, there's certain things like Proverbs and Old Testament. I can read and comprehend that stuff. Certain books like Gun Dog, Walter's books, I can just, the way it's written, I don't know. Easy. Anyways, it speaks to me, I guess, on however I'm wired up here. But anyways, see, even Grammy's midwife, Lisa, those stink bugs dive bomb me in the garden. Those things, if anyone has, if you're listening to this on the Nature's Image Farm podcast, if you're listening tonight live, or if you're checking out the replay, thank you for spending nearly 2 hours with this rambling on at the end of a long day. But if you have a tried and true way of getting rid of stink bugs, would you please leave us a comment below and let us know what you're doing to get rid of stink bugs? Because if there's one thing I can't stand, it's stink bugs. The smell, yeah, of course, they smell terrible when you touch them or you crush them or you get rid of them. But there's just something, they're just too cocky. They're these hard shell things that just don't mind blasting you in the face, and they zip around the room. And I just don't like them.
Yeah.
I just don't like them. I like to get rid of them. But Susie, any final thoughts before we cut loose for the night?
No. Have an amazing week. Keep going and growing. Hopefully you guys have started some seeds. And if you haven't, you've bought some seeds with the Cheap Seed Challenge. And we're excited to get our week underway and get back this coming weekend to tell you all about it.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and looking forward to sharing that story. As we're in the 1st of March, we are getting very close to deadlines. If you're interested in ordering queens, nukes, or packages, I would highly encourage you. This is not a pressure sale. We are not those kind of people. But if you are looking for our genetics, if you're looking for nukes, or if you're looking for packages, I would highly encourage you to go to the website, naturesimagefarm.com, and get your bees ordered before it's too late. We also have a lot of awesome products on there, including Hive Alive Global Patties. We have the brand new INSTANTVAPs, oxalic acid vaporizers. They're the cordless units that take DeWalt batteries, Milwaukee batteries with built-in battery protection. The only units on the market with built-in battery protection in the unit itself. They are so awesome.
I love using them.
You love them. It's one way that you can protect your asset, protect your investment, keep those bees clean, keep them growing, and you can do it quickly. There is no excuse anymore. There's no excuse where I have to drag out a generator, I have to drag out an extension cord. There's no more excuses for you not to do it. You can get in there and you can zap those bees, keep them healthy. That's a big deal. So you can go to our website, naturesimagefarm.com. You can order those, everything else. There's also the brand new Apame multifunction bottom board. Not only do you have the awesome dividers and control on controlling the entrances on the front, but it also has the built-in pollen trap that you know and expect from Apame. So it's a beautiful bottom board. If you want to collect a little pollen, if you want to have the options of closing and opening your entrances, you can do it. They're fantastic. Check them out. In the meantime, I guess we're going to look forward to freeze dryer updates, some hashtag cheap seed challenge updates, and bee updates. So please, this coming week, be sure that you tag us in your posts, hashtag cheap seed challenge, and even freeze dryer stuff. We love to learn about all these kind of things.
I know.
There's going to be so much fun stuff to talk about as the year kind of goes up. But this I'm going to go ahead and throw this question up because maybe it will keep it in the front of our minds to talk about in the future. But Carol McCarthy, she says, I know you're retired, but sometime can you both discuss time management on your homestead, burning the candle at both ends? And I'm tired.
I don't even know how many ends ours has between homesteading, homeschooling, running businesses, but there's a lot of ends on that candle.
There's that's a great question. I think we should dig into that because there's a lot to one of the most there's several components to that. Your physical ability, but your mindset and how we get into a mindset that is aligned with that kind of a lifestyle is one thing. A lot of folks, I think, were born with that pioneering spirit too.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of folks, burning the candle at both ends is
what keeps them going.
Is what keeps them going.
Yeah.
It's a part of who we are. And that's, you could argue it's not healthy. You could argue that it is healthy. But that's a great, Carol, thanks for that. Cause I think that could be an entire conversation because we are notorious getting off more than we can chew and finding out how to eat it cold, and we've done better year after year after year. And after every kid, after every season in the garden, after every year with the bees, we find ways to take off warm, delicious, enjoyable bites rather than those cold ones that we're trying to choke down because with the bone. So great question.
Yes.
We could spend a lot of time diving into that one. So
cover that one night. That'd be fun.
Yep. So I want to thank you guys again for joining us on the Nature's Image Farm podcast, the Nature's Image Farm live chat tonight. And if you're listening later in the replay, thanks for spending time with us. We really do appreciate you guys. You guys are the reason why we're here on Sunday nights. As always, I want to remind you to be the lighthouse
and be the change that you want to see in this world. See you next time, guys. Good night.
See you.